The coronavirus pandemic and the containment measures it prompted governments world over to enact pushed the global economy into a recession. And today, after more than 2.5 years, only a few world economies have managed to bounce back. Supply chain disruptions and debilitating lockdowns upended global trade as we know it, which contributed to a worldwide economic slowdown, prompting countries to take drastic monetary steps to bail out their economies. However, in these testing times, India was among the lucky few that managed to successfully navigate through the COVID headwinds. With a strong economic foundation and timely government intervention, the Indian economy remained resilient throughout the pandemic. As per the International Economic Resilience Index, the Indian economy's rank elevated from 4th position in 2020 to the 2nd position in 2022 among the 10 leading global economies. India, through its effective and dynamic policies, has shown a consistent improvement in its macroeconomic performance in recent years.
The immediate containment measures and extent of effective policies of the government, along with the calibrated measures by the RBI and untiring efforts of the industry, shifted the path of India's economic growth trajectory to the growing side again.
The Reserve Bank of India has forecasted GDP growth of 7.2% for the current financial year. It flagged protracted geopolitical tensions, rising global financial market volatility, tightening global financial conditions, and global recession risks as potential headwinds to the Indian economy. Like many global economies, India too faces the issue of rising prices. The RBI recently hiked the repo rate by 50 basis points, its third hike in the current financial year to beat high inflation. According to the latest Bloomberg survey of economists, while the risk of recession in a handful of Asian economies is rising, India has zero probability of slipping into recession.
Our policy environment has proven itself to be sturdy and dynamic enough to tackle any global crisis, as was observed in the Lehman crisis and recently in the COVID-19 times as well.
Amid the global challenges, India has successfully become the world's 7th favorite destination for investment. It is not just a result of the country's flourishing economy, huge consumer market, and abundant skills and talent, but also its rapidly expanding manufacturing, digital and information technology sectors as well. India's manufacturing exports, which have traditionally grown between 5% and 10%, have seen tremendous growth over the last 2 years, with a compound annual growth rate of 15%. India reached $418 billion USD in manufacturing exports in the 2022 fiscal year. From one unicorn startup in 2014 to over 100 unicorn startups, India's youth are representing the country on the global stage.
This hotel, with solar panels in place of window panes, is but one example of how many are understanding the threat of climate change and are endeavoring to make necessary changes to slow the threat. Hotelier Narayana Rao's 5-story guest house in Visakhapatnam has 201 solar panels. The panels cost over 50,000 USD, but for Mr. Rao, the panels are a small price to pay for sustainability.
एनवायरनमेंट ग्लास और ये एको पैनल लगाने से एनवायरनमेंट को मैं पूरा 40 किलोवाट जो पावर है और नेचुरल पावर लेना पड़ेगा और नेचुरल पावर बनता है एक तो कोयला से, दूसरा अणुधार्मिक का होता है, एक तो जल से होता है। ये इसने मेरे कम से कम मेरा 40 किलोवाट्स का जो मेरा यूज़ है वो तो मैं कम कर सकता हूँ, यानी मेरी तरफ से पर्यावरण को थोड़ा सा ये करेंगे, सेवा करेंगे।
At a larger scale, the government of India has doubled down on its efforts to reduce carbon emission and has set a target for the coming years and decades. India increased its green energy output in May, reducing its dependence on coal, despite a 23.5% growth in power demand, which contributed to a rise in utilities' coal inventories. At present, 40% of India's installed electricity capacity comes from renewable sources like solar, wind, and hydropower. At the United Nations 2021 Climate Summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced an ambitious plan to reduce India's dependence on fossil fuel. Under New Delhi's pledge target, it would achieve its net zero emissions by 2070, and by 2030, it would endeavor to touch the mark of 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel energy. This would reduce carbon emissions by 1 billion tons. India spent a total of $14.5 billion USD on renewable energy last year, up by 125% compared with the financial year 2020 to 21, and 72% higher than in the pre-pandemic period of the 2019 to 2020 financial year.
We are on track with respect to whatever we have committed to ourselves and to international community, and most of the spending is coming from private sector.
India has an immediate renewable energy target of 50% of its total energy needs, which the government says it will be able to achieve within a few years. Every arm of the Indian government has already set out on their mission, with alternate sources of energy being pursued aggressively in all aspects of lives. The phasing out of petrol and diesel vehicles and their CNG and electric alternatives hitting the road is just one facet of the country's multi-pronged green mission. While the per capita carbon emission of India is one of the lowest among the world's major economies, an absolute green India doesn't seem implausible, with the kind of enthusiasm and capital being pushed into the project.